And I have some numbers I wanted to run by you guys that could help us win some bets going into the upcoming round of 16. And there has been a lot of conversation throughout the last few days about just how chalky the first round has been. But I have some specific numbers, and that is that favorites of 6 or more points entering this round the last 2 years. They've gone 51-6 straight up, including 26-2 against the spread this year, and then 38-19 against the spread last year. So the teams that fit that bill entering the Sweet 16, we're looking at teams in this round that are going to be favored by 6 or more. You have Florida -6.5 over Maryland. You have Duke -8.5 over Arizona. You have Auburn -8.5 over Michigan, and Houston -7.5 over Purdue. And the first question I have for you guys is, will this trend continue? Because going in this round throughout the last few years, this is kind of when maybe an underdog or two could take advantage. But when you look at these 4 games, do you have a favorite in particular that you are already eyeing? And Jenks, I'll start with you.
A particular trend, honestly, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but the trend I keep following is these chalky trends that you're mentioning. And a lot of it is what we're seeing out of Duke or out of Florida. Because when you have these chalky teams that are dominant, they're also covering at a high rate. So not only are you talking about winning straight up, so if you like a team like a Duke, like a Florida, one of these dominant teams, and you want to put them in a parlay, then you can do that. And also, by the way, you have Vegas, which is relying on a lot of these parlays to fail so that they can make money. So this is not the first one to say, okay, maybe you should do this, maybe you should not. A lot of people have had this same idea. But I think for these top tier teams, the number has not been able to get big enough thus far. So as far as following chalk and following teams that are big favorites, it may seem like, oh, it's the tournament. Oh, these games tend to be tighter, but not for these upper echelon teams. Look at Florida. They're 26-10 against the number this year. Duke is 24-12 against the number this year. And those numbers have been inflated all season long.
Yeah, doesn't it smell like a money line parlay when you hear all these stats? Like, that's what it seems like to me. Like, while you were talking, I was over at BetMGM crafting some money line parlays. So if you take some of these, and obviously I think you do need to choose wisely, because I do think there are some favorites that are still vulnerable in this spot. So I started with Duke. Feels like it's the obvious one, but they're 9.5 point favorites. So they're -450 on the money line. So you're going to have to add it with 2 other teams. So I'm going to go with Houston -375. Those 2 legs are -183. So we got to add something else. So Jenks, let me ask you, of these favorites, which one would you add? Would you do Florida -285? That gets you to +109. Or do you go with Auburn at -400? I feel hesitant. I don't know why I don't trust this Auburn team, and maybe I should, because they've been nothing but good, and it does feel like they've been playing a little bit better lately, but I think I'm leaning towards Florida as like the more trustworthy favorite if we are playing that parlay.
I totally agree. I'd go with Florida. Florida can win it all. And Auburn is awesome. They've been awesome for most of the season, but they haven't quite – they faltered a little bit at the end of the year. I mean, not too much, but for Auburn, they didn't quite look like the dominant team that we saw during the regular season. Just a little hiccup or two, so I would go Florida.
Yeah, same. I think what scares me about Auburn is the way they play in the final 2 minutes of the game. Like, there's been some instances where you're like, this is a team that's supposed to win it all. What are they doing? Are they just crumbled in the last 2 minutes? So maybe that's what's, on my mind. And maybe it's a little recency bias because we know they have the talent to win it all, but I don't think I want to put my money on it. All right, Zach, what's the next trend?
So we're moving from favorites to underdogs now, and I want to focus on the SEC, who we know they broke a record, 7 teams making it to this round. That's the most ever. And dating back to the end of the regular season, SEC underdogs are 29-19 ATS and 6-3 ATS in the tournament. This season, the SEC is also 28-13 ATS as an underdog against non-conference opponents. We know that they just dominated that portion of the schedule, and 2 SEC dogs stand out in this round with Arkansas and Ole Miss. And one last point, John Calipari, he is great as an underdog. He's been listed as a dog in this tournament 11 times, and he's 7-3-1 ATS. So when you look at those 2 teams, Arkansas and Ole Miss, which team are you more confident in them covering and maybe even winning outright in this round. And Chelsa, we'll start with you.
All right, so why isn't Kentucky included in this list? Because they're playing an SEC team? Because if we're talking about SEC underdogs with Bark, I think I'm going to go with the Cats, getting 4.5 against Tennessee. Kentucky has already beaten Tennessee twice this season, and they're getting 4.5. But I understand the question was about some of these other teams. Arkansas getting 5.5, that seems tempting to me because this feels like the same line that we've been handed for Arkansas all tournament long, and Arkansas continues to win outright. A team that fits the mold of one of those teams that just gains momentum down the stretch. So I'm going to go with Arkansas plus 5.5 over Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech is really good, but I'll take the 5.5 with Arkansas, as well as that bet on Kentucky.
Yeah, I'm going to defriend this trend. I don't like this trend at all. Now, I like Texas Tech. Maybe it's not my official bet, but I'm going to be on the opposite side of Chelsa here. And so I feel like Arkansas has had a nice run, and Coach Cal has done a good job, but I think we're sleeping on Texas Tech because Arkansas has a bigger name head coach. And I will also say, like I said previously, which is when you look at Arkansas, that was a great win, but also they got really not lucky. They were very fortunate that St. John's could not hit anything and still was able to kind of keep, within the number, keep it close until Arkansas pulled away at the end. Texas Tech is going to have to go ice cold, I feel like, for Arkansas to cover this number. I just think we're paying the Coach Cal tax here, and that we're giving Arkansas too much credit. I'm going to go. Nobody's talking about Texas. I haven't talked about Texas Tech. I like Texas Tech. I think I'm going to lay the points. So I'm not following either one of these trends.
Jenks, I talked about Texas Tech. I liked them at what, 22-1 to win it all? Talked about that.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about me. I'm talking about the general public. Yeah, I'm just saying.
Yeah,
in general,
I get what you're saying.
Are you hearing a lot of Texas Tech talk? Yeah.
No.
Probably not.
I understand. And Texas Tech, they have gone toe-to-toe with Houston like multiple times, and I think they deserve credit for that alone. So maybe we'll see the end of the run for the Hogs, even though, Jenks, that's my daughter's favorite team because we went to the SEC tournament like 2 years ago, and she got to see him live, and she absolutely loves the mascot. So she'll be screaming, "Go Hogs!"